Format Revolution Part 3. This is going to be entitled The Rise. I'm going to talk about decks that I believe will be positively affected by Extreme Victory, Trishula, and TG Librarian. Now, I will say this, because of TG Librarian's legality dates, the decks that I believe will be positively affected have been affected. The card is not going to be legal until the first week of July, which means the meta is going to change within a month. There's no all of June and the second half of May to, abuse it and to define the format. Okay, first I'm going to talk about scraps. Now, I'll say this, Trishula being legal or Trishula coming out hurts the deck because I still believe that getting a Scrap Dragon out is a very hard play to counter. Because the thing about Scrap Dragon, when you have like a Scrap Dragon and Decree Lock versus something like a Stardust and a Warning, you know what I mean? Your opponent can't really play defense. They can't set cards. They can't set, oh, I'm going to set a Raikou or a Penguin Soldier, or I'm going to set a Juju Master, or I'm going to get a set of Tomato, and when you kill it, I'm going to get something to counter. It's hard to counter Scrap Dragon because when you get him on the field with Scraps and you have something like Decree, you basically simplify the game state. And it only takes 328s to lose, and I think people really forget that. When you get that field, you're basically giving your opponent 3 turns to counter you or lose. And I think Tengu adds consistency to the deck because you now have a non-tuner 4-star that you can summon, and you don't really care if it dies. As long as it doesn't get removed, you're pretty happy about it. Next turn you can summon, you can just summon a tuner, you can summon that beast and tune, and now have your beast already loaded for Chimera. Or you can just, use Tengu as fodder for this guy, or you can have your Tengu die and then tribute it for Golem. And you know what I mean? There are 1-card answers to Scrap Dragon, but I mean, short of removing it, they don't really do anything. I mean, Trishula adds more to the pool, but if you don't have your Chaos Sorcerer or your Grand Mole like right there, you're probably gonna get kicked around by scraps. I mean, I like the deck going forward, to be honest. And the new card, Orithos, I think I might have pronounced that right, I think gives the deck more consistency too. Second deck is going to be plants, whether you run Chaos Plants like I have shown here, or Doppel Plants. I mean, they're both really good decks. Obviously, you guys have seen what Doppel Plants can do. The deck can go really, really nuts. Chaos Plants is just a deck that's going to be more consistent because the synchros that are being added with TG Librarian and Trishula just basically help the deck become more consistent. I mean, there isn't a ton to say about the deck. I believe Plant Synchro plays out of locks and plays better than any deck in the format. So that's definitely one reason I like it. Cards like Oppression, it can seem to dance around because, you always have that Raikou or Lila. It just has a bunch of different monster effects that seem to get it out of any situation between Chaos Sorcerer and the Breed Dragon and Raikou and Lila. And, all the synchros where basically level 2 through 9 you can make very easily. My next deck, KMP. Now, I'll say this. People will shout bias because, I play with KMP. I got 9th place, and it's the deck that I play. I was not going to put KMP on here until I found out that TG Librarian was not going to be legal until July. Because with the new synchros coming out, things like Trishula and TG Librarian, this deck actually can't make either one of those consistently. Unless you run stuff like, Scapegoat or other things like that. But I'll say this, and Plant Synchro is a more balanced deck than Karakuri, but KMP, when you add the Plant Engine, it seems like Plant Synchro is the Fantastic Four and KMP is like the Super Scroll. It's like you can do a lot of the plays that they do, you can Synchro spam like they can, but I mean, they might be more balanced, but when it comes to straight power, I'm sorry, there is no deck that can put out more damage just instantly than KMP. I mean, when you add limit or removal, I've gotten fields where I can do almost 20,000 damage. because I have like 3 Barretos and a Stardust and a Fortress. I mean, you know what I mean? This deck just, it seems like it has flat out the most muscle in the entire format. And I can't really think of another deck that can do that. I mean, there are decks that can, you know, with Plant Synchro, you might be able to go Formula, then Arcanite, then end with Trishula, and that's fine. But there is no stopping summoning 3 Barretos, then getting a Stardust, and then pitching for a Fortress. I mean, this deck just has too much muscle. And the fact that it can kind of do that at the drop of a hat is basically what's going to keep it consistent. You look at these decks like Scraps and Fables and Plant Synchro, these decks do not play defense very well. And you have a deck like this that will just flat out take advantage. That's how I won so many of my games is, you know, basically I flipped on a switch and at any given turn, I synchro spammed and it was over because I was putting out 2800s and not these little synchros, you know what I mean? That just make advantage. And also, you have to love the fact that while you're summoning these big-ass beat sticks, you're drawing at the same time. So it's not like you're just putting everything on the board and they gorge you and you lose, you know? My next deck, and I think that this is the sleeper of the format, and I'm probably going to play this very soon, Gladiator Beast. This is some Therio here, but it just seems like everything is pointing to this deck becoming absolutely amazing. You look at the decks like Fabled and Plants. You look at the decks that people are going to be playing going forward a lot more, and I'm sorry, these decks just flat out get destroyed by War Chariot. Glads always have had a very good matchup versus Plant Synchro. They have a very good matchup versus Gravekeepers. I think their matchup versus Samurai is not that great, but against all these other decks, Glads are just pretty amazing. And when you add cards like Forbidden Chalice, not necessarily Glad specific cards, but cards like Safe Zone and Forbidden Chalice that have come out, Forbidden Lance that have come out and just aided Glads. I mean, I think the consistency is just going to rise to the fact that they're going to be very relevant again because Chariot is a free Divine Wrath that you can juggle and you can just shut people down. The new Gladiator also, I think it's Aris Derry or something like that. It's also really good. At first I thought the card was bad, but here's what it does. It makes it so that you can tag into a quest and tag into stuff like Murmillo and Radiari and not have to leave those little guys on the field. Not have to use your D-Prison or your EVAP because now you can contact into the big guy and you don't have to use that D-Prison. You can save that for 2 turns later. I mean, if I have that guy in a Chariot, how the hell are you going to run over him? I mean, he's 2,500. It's not going to be very easy to run over him. So the card adds more consistency to the deck. And if you have all these decks that are completely reliant on monster effects and they can't play defense well, Glads are going to eat their lunch. My last deck, my deck that I think is going to stay the same is GK. I'll try and make this quick. I mean, the fact that they added 7 tools makes the deck really, really good because it seems like they can kind of do whatever they want between 7 tools and constantly using Descendant to pop your back rows. But when you try and use your cards to defend yourself, that's when they bust out the 7 tools. Royal Tribute is always a bitch. Necro Valley shuts down a lot of things. You have those decks that play high monster count like Plant Synchro and Fabled and Fish OTK. I mean, they kind of auto lose to a good Royal Tribute. Sabres have a hard matchup with them. I mean, the deck's really not going to go anywhere. And then the last 2 decks are Fabled and Psychic. The reason I didn't really include those, and I think Fable has the potential to be flat out amazing. Tier 1 is, I mean, without Librarian, the deck is just pretty much average, and she's not coming out until July, or she won't be legal until July. Psychic, I believe, is kind of status quo. People think it's amazing. I